pleasant good morning to you all, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. You're looking live into an office in Discovery Hall on the first floor, room 134, on the campus of Central Washington University. The local time is 7:49 a.m. Pacific Time, and today's date is February 1st of 2025. Looks like we're loud and clear. I say hello to so many of you. We have blue sky, and each Saturday morning that we get together, oh, come on, I got to give you a shot quick here. It gets a little more light out there. Spring is coming. At least it feels like that this morning. The fog is gone. It's 29 degrees Fahrenheit. There's a little stir in the air. It feels nice out there. That's my point. Feels nice out there. I hope that it's going well for you wherever you are around the world. Can I say hi to a number of you to warm up my mouth? I think my brain is awake, but maybe my mouth is not. Oscar, something's going on with the heat in this building, so I've been using your space heater. It's 62 degrees in here again this morning. So thank you, Oscar, for your gift. Isn't he a state employee? Oh. Tim and Joan are in Bend, Oregon. Good morning. Let me come down to live. I might already have missed your typed in comment. Kirk is in Sweden. Eric is in Smith County, Virginia. Sunny Pearland, Texas. Garrett, the Dutch night owl. Garrett, the Dutch night owl from the Netherlands. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Garrett. Lava Hot Springs, we were just talking about you last night. Hannah Shamlu and Jordan Carey were over at the house. We had a nice meal together, some Indian food. And Liz was talking about her upbringing in southeastern Idaho, and she said, it's Lava Hot Springs, but we all call it lava. We'll go down to lava and go off the high dive. Ann is in West Dallas, Wisconsin. Yeah, I'm feeling good this morning for reasons I don't understand. Saber's in Baja, Mexico. Jim is in Maple Valley, Washington. Okay, so we got Tom in Maple Valley, and we have Jim in Maple Valley, and Jim reports some snow happening right now in the greater Seattle area. Not so here. Denise is in Olympia, Washington. That's the state capital. Ed is in St. Paul, Minnesota. That's the state capital. Doug is in Petersburg, Alaska. That's not the state capital. Red Lester is in London. Oh, I feel too good this morning. That feeling is about to expire, I guess. Maybe I'm feeling good because I have no idea what I'm doing this morning. I'm not hamstrung by what's about to happen. Google Earth by Glenn. Oh, all the old hits are coming back. Google Earth by Glenn is camping. Are you kidding me? Are you down at Lava this morning? That's weird. Yeah, we were all talking last night about risky. What was the riskiest thing that we've done? I don't know why. And I said, well, when I first met Liz, I went down to Lava Hot Springs and I climbed all the way to the top of that Olympic height platform and dove off, even though I was petrified. And Liz was like, yeah, I do that all the time. It's like, okay. Thank you. Do we have backcountry? We got Gary Paul in the house. Backcountry Gary's in the house. Hello, Gary. Hey, Gary. Are we on for 9 o'clock tomorrow? How about, in addition to our plan, how about the first half of what we do, Gary, are your reactions to what we've been doing here and some tips for me for what I might want to do for the rest of the letters. You up to that? And then we'll go on to our ideas about Nick on the Rocks for the next season. But I think I'd like to do 50-50. If you want to get your Mead Spiral notebook out and your purple gel pen, since you are a Washington Husky, I'd Like top 10 things that you enjoyed so far from the letters, and another top 10 things, it can be fast, about things that you want to make sure that we cover with the remaining letters. And then we'll go to your top 10 ideas for filming Nick on the Rocks. Just an idea. Lindsay Malone. Thank you. I got your email this morning, Lindsay. Thank you. We'll do a couple of those photos. Lots of lava hot springs talk in the live chat. Damn, did not see that coming. Jim is in Chehalis, Washington. Need to look at the clock. We'll say hi to a few more of you. Type again if I missed you. I'm sorry. Davis, California. Let's do like 20 more locations, and then I have to start thinking about what we're doing and start praying. Glasgow, Scotland. Hello, Paul. Good evening to you. Is the sun already down there? It's approaching 8 a.m. here. I suppose it's dark there by now. Roseburg, Oregon. New Bern, North Carolina. Sacramento, California. Dayton, Ohio. Amity, Oregon. Burlington, Washington. Oregon Central Coast. Portland, Oregon. Sandrine T. says, hello, Nick and all from Brittany, northwest of France. Hello. I'm not sure if you're new to us, but I don't think I remember reading you before, or reading about you, or reading your comment before. It's nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Jeffrey is in Troutdale, Oregon. Patty is in Hawaii. I think that's what you mean there, Patty. Jealous. Overcast, Hubbard, Oregon. Lots of Oregon people. Will's in Albany, Oregon. Quincy, Washington. Welcome, Washington. Anne Marie, I think I shared your photo last time, didn't I? The Villages, Florida. Mankato, Minnesota. Yeah, we got almost 500 on an early Saturday morning, at least here on the West Coast. Glenn's in Yakima, Washington. Jeff is in Oskaloosa, Kansas. K-A, is it K-S? You mean Kansas? Now I'm giving everybody notes on how to type in their thing. You're like, get off my back, man. Okay, so thank you, everybody. We will start the program in 5 minutes. I can feel you here. I can feel you here. So thank you for being here live. Hot mic. Okay. How are you going to start? That's the age-old question. How are you going to start? Well, I think you're going to define the title, and you're going to draw. Yeah, you need to get some blank pieces of paper and some markers. You're going to draw, boy. You're going to emphasize that you are asking questions today. Establish that this is a different kind of an episode, right? You need to establish that early. You also need to, oh boy, maybe I'll come up with something on my walk. Here we go. Hot mic, go. I have my keys. A pleasant good morning to you all, and thank you for joining us for this episode. I'm your host, Ned Zentner, and today our episode is red. Our episode is Big Red Plutons. It's official. We have made it to the 20s, the Roaring Twenties. Thanks to Pat from Natchez, Pat the pilot, who came up with this months ago when he first heard that I was doing this decade idea. And we have been building toward the 20s, the whole alphabet. And maybe you thought we'd get here earlier than February, but it's February, it's Valentine's month, and we are ready to enjoy what waits for us in the decade of the 20s. So big, red, 20s, Plutons. And there's some Plutons, some red Plutons over my shoulder. These are not all of the Plutons in Washington, but they're Plutons that we are going to study starting today. And I say starting today because I do not know how far we are going to go today. Today is particularly loose. I have a very, very rough plan in mind. I want to do some drawing. I want to ask a bunch of questions. You're like, questions? Come on, man. I signed up for this thing. You're going to ask a bunch of questions? You didn't sign up. You didn't pay any money, Harold, okay? You don't have to check your checkbook. It's okay. It's all free. But asking questions out loud is part of the learning experience, at least for me. And we have enough of a back and forth, not you now, Harold, but others, geologists who are watching, other amateurs who are very into this stuff and have resources, backcountry hikers, and so on. There's a lot of expertise out there. And I think since I have 5 days before the next episode, we're going to do some stuff for sure. I hope it's interesting to you, but I'm going to lob out some questions that occurred to me late last night and early this morning. I don't have the answers to them, and maybe you and I together can figure a few things out, or at least find some resources that get us to where our current state of knowledge is. We're definitely going to the Spirit Lake Pluton this morning, and I kind of forgot that I had so much video from 2 trips down to the Spirit Lake Pluton this past summer. And so late last night, I'm like, oh my God, why am I scrambling to find all this stuff in these papers? I've got some video, and I've got some hand samples. Pieces of the Spirit Lake Pluton are right here. This is an actual chunk that you'll see me breaking off with a hammer in a bit. So I think there's 5 video clips one right after the next from the Spirit Lake Pluton, and 2 of those 5 video clips will be meeting Isla Pamukcha from Stanford University. Pamukchu, I'm still practicing Isla, sorry. Isla Pamukchu, Isla Pamukchu, Isla Pamukchu. Say that 3 times and it'll stick. Isla Pamukchu. So Isla is part of the Spirit Lake Pluton project. She's more than part of it. She's co-leading the frickin' project with Mike Eddy, and you will hear from her directly about what some of the detailed plans are for the Spirit Lake Pluton. But that's just one of a number of Plutons that we will be visiting today. Have you figured out what I've done on the board? That's Ellensburg. That's Mount Baker volcano. That's Glacier Peak volcano. That's Mount Rainier volcano. That's Mount St. Helens volcano. That's Mount Adams volcano. And here are 5 big red Plutons. I don't think we'll get to all 5 today, but we'll get introduced, at least geographically, to these locations, and we'll start with detail with the Spirit Lake Pluton. That's the plan today. I want to start by drawing a little bit. Drawing after I remind you that, we know this by now. I don't have to do this anymore, right? You've been with the series, and if you haven't, then whatever. So we're done with that. We know the routine. And we made it. We're red on the first day of February, and we'll be red at least 2 more episodes, I would say. I'm not sure of that, but I think 2 more episodes. February 6th, February 8th will still be red in the 20s. and then we'll work our way to some teens, and then we'll make sure to have 2, maybe 3 episodes in purple with Hannah Shamloo, Kelly Wall, and the Goat Rocks team. I've said that I was going to draw, but I guess I forgot I had a couple of these things here. We know the thing is set up now. We started 46 million years ago with this scene, and we're not leaving this picture. So the tectonic peculiarities are behind us, it appears. We're done with the break-off belt magma story, I guess. And yeah, we started 46, but we realized that this volcanic arc for the Cascades was happening all through the 20s. All through the 30s, and now here we are in the 20s. We still have this thing going on. We can expect to see basalt, andesite, dacite, and rhyolite, all 4 of these kinds of lavas, and the corresponding plutonic rocks, gabbro, diorite, granodiorite, tonalite, and granite. So all that igneous geology is coming, and I'm just reminding you where we've been. We're done, and we're here now. And these were our early days. These are the light blue 40s, where we had Tamanous Rock and the Granite Falls Pluton. But now we are still in this column for the rest of the alphabet. Okay. Okay. I already said, I'm going to be like scattered. Hopefully this episode feels different than the others in that I'm kind of stumbling. I'm kind of like, what do I want to do now? I want to draw some more. I want to ask this question. That's the idea. Let's see if I can pull it off. So I want to draw. And I think I want to start with a very basic message about what a Pluton is. And you're like, oh, seriously? Yeah, I do. I want to involve everybody. So Geology 101. We have a very cartoonish cross-section. This is what's known as a volcano, everybody. And there are lava flows that come out of the volcano. And there's explosive things. There's tephra deposits that are falling out of the sky. There's pyroclastic flows and ash flow tufts. There's volcanic mud flows coming away. It's hell on wheels up here on the surface with this volcanic system. And underground is a magma chamber. And cartoonishly, it's just a vat of red-hot magma that's just sitting down there, and occasionally there's batches of this red-hot magma coming to the surface to feed another eruption. And as I've been teaching Cascade volcanoes at the 100 level for a long, long time, I say there's a 2 million year lifespan. There's a 2 million year lifespan for a particular cone. Are you a volcano like Mount Rainier? Okay. That's a stratovolcano? Yes. How long's it been there? I just blindly say less than 2 million years. You're like, how do you know that? And I may, by the end of Geology 351 this spring, I might change my tune when we start really detailed look at some of these stratovolcanoes. But until I'm convinced otherwise, I just visualize the birth, life, and death of an individual cone to be a 2 million year process. It has life for 2 million years and no longer than that. And I'm setting the hook because many of our Plutons have that kind of a time frame. We're not going to get there today, but these big red Plutons in some cases appear to be born alive, red hot, full of warmth, sometimes hotness, and then they lose their life, they lose their heat. And they go from magma to solidified plutonic igneous rock. That's what a Pluton is. Within a 2 million year lifespan. Just playing with you now. I'm still not there, but I was trying to find the most recent dates that we have for each of these big red Plutons. They're in the 20s. And some of these are like 24 to 22 million years old. 26 to 24 million years old, 20 to 18 million years old. But you go, oh, no, there's no Kwame Vathlev. I've read for years that it's 26 to 18 million years ago. Well, that very well could be true. But we are in a new age of new attention from cutting-edge geologists like Ayla Pamukchu and Mike Eddy and Jeff Tepper and others. who can find these zircons, can get these detailed dates that we did not have before, and we are in the process of realizing that even though these Plutons have more complicated history and have different zones and have different batches. Remember, the Chilliwack had 55 different Plutons inside of it? And that was collectively a batholith? Even though we can kind of take a Pluton and realize there's 4 or 5 stories within the one big red Pluton, I think it's still commonly 5 stories within a 2 million year lifespan. Isla's going to say that in just a bit when we get to her. Okay, still just trying to set the hook for the episode, but the idea is this is where we're forming the Plutons, the big red Plutons. And are they really red in the field? No, they're not. The Spirit Lake Pluton looks like mint chocolate chip ice cream. But I'm calling them big red Plutons because we are in red time. Very good. I want to do a few other things there. Oh, yeah, I'll do a couple more quick things, scattered things, before we start the slideshow. Please remember, if it's bothering you already, you're like, come on, man, why do you have Chilliwack red? I thought the whole point of a week ago was to say that there's multiple colors in the Chilliwack. There are. But we're to the 20s today, and the Chilliwack was active until 22 million years ago, and then the Chilliwack mysteriously shuts off. And the Chilliwack Pluton, batholith, I'm using those terms interchangeably, these colors correspond to our Chilliwack rainbow, but 22, I'll just use black. There's a magmatic lull. I don't know why that's the word that's used all the time in the literature, but there is. I remember the Dream Team, I was just talking about this mysterious lull. In other words, the magma's just shut off and there's like weirdly quiet for 10 million years. In the case of the North Cascades with Bob Miller, Stacia Gordon, and Mike Eddy, there was a magmatic lull between 60 and 50 million years ago before the crazy Eocene starts firing up because Seleucia arrives. Well, in the Cascades, at least with the Chilliwack rainbow, there is a freaky lull where the Chilliwack batholith, I'm talking about this one, up by Mount Baker, it goes up into BC as well, where the Chilliwack rainbow shuts off 22 million years ago and doesn't fire up again until 11 million years ago. Why? And I think we only know, that's my first question. Keep track of the questions, everybody. What do these lulls tell us? I mean, it's one thing if a magmatic system just shuts down and you're like, okay, I guess there's just a 2 million year lifespan or whatever. But the Chilliwack, remember, has a 35 million year history, and that was the point of the Chilliwack rainbow show. And yet lost in the fine print is that over the 35 million years of history, there's 11 million years where not a frickin' thing's going on. Why? I doubt we'll get an answer before Z, but we can ask a bunch of questions. Scattershot, we might come up with some answers as we go. Okay, a couple other things I wanted to do. So yeah, I'm reminding you other ways that you bet we are done with Ohanapikosh time. We've set the stage. We are ready for the decade of the 20s. We're featuring the Spirit Lake Pluton today, but there are other stories as well. And you know where we're headed. By the time we're done with February, we will firmly be in Goat Rock's time. Bringing this back from the last episode, this is just a start, but it graphically shows our 3 featured players today. I'm not even sure we're going to get to Snoqualmie, but when we get to the slideshow and the video clips, there'll be plenty on Spirit Lake Pluton. We'll transition to Tatoosh, which is Rainier Park. And I think we may end up at Snoqualmie Pass today, but I'm not sure of the process today. A couple other things I noticed. Bijou and I realized by reading this morning, there's 4 miles thick, say it differently. If you take the total thickness of the Ohanapakash Formation and the Fife's Peak Formation. So that's the name, the general name for all of these lavas and pyroclastic flows and ash deposits and mud flows and everything else. So we kind of have this piling up of volcanic products in the Cascades. Green, remember dark green and light green, 35 to 26. We've already hammered that. Submarine, blah, blah, blah. But we're now realizing for the first time that we have another pile of, I don't know if it's similar or not. Question. This is the drinking word today. Question. Question. How are the piles of deposits, volcanic deposits, during Fife's Peak time different than Ohanapakash time? You're like, well, that's easy. They're red and these are green. No. It's true the Ohanapakash is green, literally green rocks. It's not true that the Fife's Peak Formation is a bunch of red rocks. That's just my choice, my color choice based on Paul Hammond's color choice from 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. Red for the Fife's Peak. But collectively, if you really work with the stratigraphy of all these volcanic deposits, it's a 4-mile thickness, maybe 2 miles for Ohanapakash, 2 miles for Fife's Peak. We're back to the uplift thing again. How's that even possible? How's it possible to have a volcanic pile 4 miles thick? Is the floor continuing to drop out during Ohanapakash time? And if you're annoyed by the uplift question, I'm going to annoy you again. Are we continuing to drop the floor during the Fife's Peak as well? I don't know, but I'm starting to wonder this morning, right now with you, are we still very low elevation and making room for this pile that's 4 miles thick? 4 miles thick. This is more thickness than the German chocolate cake. German chocolate cake, the flood basalts, the Yakima basalts, which are coming later this month. Those are 3 miles thick. This is more. Wow. This is a rainbow cake, everybody. But yes, somehow we're bringing these things in, and 26 million years ago appears to be the start for at least a couple of these plutons. What's special about 26 million years ago? Okay. I guess one last thing is that, we did this quickly before. Let me come in again. This will be kind of our roadmap in addition to the chalkboard. US 12, I-90, US 2, Washington 20, Rainbow Chilliwack, kind of Rainbow Snoqualmie, Spirit Lake, Silver Star, Tatoosh, Bumping Lake, Grotto, Cloudy Pass. Are they all truly red? We'll be looking at it, but I think at this point they are. Okay, let's crank up the slideshow and get rolling. We've already established many things here. The papers today at Cascades paper site is recycling. I moved the PhD by Paul Hammond from 1963 up to today's show, episode S. I moved Jim Mattinson's paper to this episode as well, and the Mullen paper, because I continue to get lots of great things from them. But there's not a lot of new papers today. The last show that we did, that was a scripted show. Remember all those video clips I had, everything? The slideshow was rich. You had all those papers. That was a very scripted, methodical show. I hope you enjoyed it. Can't remember the name of the episode. This one's different. There's hardly any papers. There's no new papers. And it's me sketching, sharing video clips, and asking questions. Very good. All right, so let's get rid of that. Oh, wait, here are we? Yeah, here we are. You know how to find these episodes on my website if you have trouble finding them on YouTube. Okay, I do have plenty, and I'm excited to share what I have with you tied to that. Yeah, okay. So, not everybody watches these things live, of course. So I got this email at 2 a.m. this morning. This is just 5 hours ago. Nick, here I am, catching up on episode Q from the Portland International Airport, 2 a.m. after missing my Alaska Airlines connection due to a delay flying home from Kansas City. Keep up the good work. Thank you, Kevin. And I just heard from Kevin half an hour ago that he did make it home and he's ready to crawl into bed. So, fun to get all these emails. No singing today. All right, we continue. We continue to celebrate the life and career of Paul Hammond, who passed away earlier this month. Beautiful old photograph sent to me by Jessica Tchaikovsky, who is one of the leaders of the Washington Geological Survey in Olympia. I'm getting to know the Washington Geological Survey much more carefully and thoroughly now. And this beautiful photo, I emailed Rocky Crandall's daughter, Jane, to see if she recognized anybody in the photo. She did not. She suggested I email Carolyn Dreger, and I will be doing that. The only person I know for sure is Paul Hammond, dressed in red, the Roaring Twenties. Too perfect. Paul Hammond with a red beret, Paul Hammond with a red flannel, whatever this is, 1977? I don't know. I thought maybe this was Rocky Crandall and Donald Molyneux, but it's not. So if somebody's watching this and you can identify a few of the names, I would love to be able to learn. Nobody knows at Washington Geological Survey anybody's identification except for Paul. Some sort of chartered geology trip. God knows where they are. Yes, we've made it to the Roaring Twenties. Yes, we are inspired by Paul Hammond's color choices of the green for the Ohanapikosh. Wildcat beds was last time. And now we are dipping our toe into this world. And all the detail of Paul Hammond's world will wait. That's not today. We're just starting to tackle these major Plutons. This is an email from Jessica Tchaikovsky last fall, October. I had a Zoom visit with her. Nick, great talking with you today. As a follow-up to our discussion about Paul Hammond, I'm sending along a few files that you might find useful. Let me know if you need any more detailed information. Charlie gave us a lot of stuff. So who's Charlie? Charlie is the son of Paul Hammond. And so this is a recent posting by Jessica after Paul's death, and she's fondly remembering in August of 2023, Paul Hammond and his son Charlie Hammond loaded up 2 container trucks and dropped off 19 pallets of 7,000 rock samples by Paul Hammond, hundreds of thin sections, maps, analytical data, and field notebooks at our storage facility in Olympia, Washington. I was told that the 7,000 samples were only the good ones. So here's Charlie, the son of Paul Hammond, supermising, loading the pallets onto the trucks of delivery day. And as I mentioned in the last episode, I'll just do this again quickly. Paul, in his last few years, suffered from dementia. And so if that wasn't the reality, the cruel reality, I definitely would have been interviewing Paul Hammond as much as possible with this YouTube channel over the last 5, 6, 7 years. But it just wasn't possible. And so, so that's the subtext for this. I got an email from Charlie, the son of Paul, yesterday afternoon. Nick, thank you for recognizing my dad during your Cascades A to Z recording yesterday. Well, it was Thursday's show. Thanks to a couple of friends of mine, I heard about it and viewed the first half of the episode or so. My dad would have been tickled, happy to hear your praises, especially for what it means for his legacy. Throughout his career, he was always concerned about doing his work, building on his legacy. Even toward the end of his affliction, he would mention that he was doing work. If only we are all so lucky. Over the past couple of years, when I told him about what I was donating of his to Washington Geological Survey, he would be either happy to hear about it or upset because it was his job to do. I give him a lot of credit. He had a great geologist life. Thank you, Charlie. I hope you don't mind me sharing that email. I thought it was beautifully written. And to everyone, what's happening now? This is before Paul's death. Thanks to Charlie's thinking. What's happening now is that all of the Paul Hammond materials are being cataloged to be available publicly. The rock samples, the databases, the beautiful maps. There's a bunch of colorful things that I'm sure nobody has seen, or very few people have seen. And so back to Jessica's post at the Washington Geological Survey, in July of last year, a small team within the survey began the process of creating what will be the Paul E. Hammond Collection, preserving the detailed mapping, data, samples, and notes, and other information he gathered over his long career. Our hope is to have a working inventory by the spring of 2026 and use the following 2 years to convert the information into a fully attributed GIS database so that publishing his geologic maps will then, in theory, be easy. Good news for you, Tom, in Maple Valley, and many others who are proficient with using GIS. So there's a lot going on at Washington Geological Survey, and I mentioned to you that Jordan Carey here and I went over to Olympia a couple weeks ago to visit with the entire staff. There's a lot of really interesting and exciting work being done over there at the headquarters in Olympia, and workers all across the state. So I'm going to be spending more time directly with the Washington Geological Survey to promote and to showcase all this great work at their portal and everything else. So the timing of this is kind of weird, to be honest, but it's happened, and let's just roll with it the best we can. So many of you know the work of Daniel Coe, Washington Geological Survey. He's the guy that does all the beautiful artwork, combining LiDAR with illustrations, and his visual sense is hard to beat. He's famous around the world in the world of cartography. Many of you remember Joel Gombiner, Ice Age floods geologist who studied under Brian Atwater at University of Washington. That's the guy that published with Jerome Lessman. So this is a photo taken last spring when I had the Ice Age floods on the brain. And here is Jordan Carey from Central Washington University, who is starting some sort of hybrid life where Jordan is going to be working with our students here in CWU Geology, but also doing some work with the Washington Geological Survey, and that emerging and that flourishing connection between our department here and the Washington Geological Survey will continue and be amplified, primarily because of the talent of this young instructor, who is really, I've already been featuring Jordan Carey a fair amount on my YouTube channel. You might remember him last spring when we were out, and Jordan was like brand new to some of these thoughts, and we were trying to reason things out together in the field. I thought that was really fun to do that. But Jordan is married to Hannah Shamloo, who you've heard me talk about plenty. So this is a dynamic young couple, and in addition to their skill as scientists, they have this following where I'm invisible walking down the hall these days. The students want to hang out with these two guys. If I'm walking down the hall with Jordan Carey, they don't even see me. They see Jordan. They see Hannah, and they are mobbed as they walk around the building. So that's an exciting thing that's happening here. And this new connection with Jordan and Washington Geological Survey is exciting for me. And so there'll be plenty of WGS stuff coming down the road because of this new connection between Jordan and the Washington Geological Survey. Even Chris Mattinson in the noon talk yesterday, if you saw the Friday noon talk by Chris Mattinson, who's a professor here, Chris has been working closely with Alex Steele and some of the others at Washington Geological Survey. So it's not like Jordan is trying to create something from scratch. There's already a relationship there, and many of our former students are working at the survey. But Jordan is the new connection that we haven't had before, internships and other things. So there we go. Okay. Yep. Here we are. And will we stick with just one shade of red, 26 to 18? Probably, but maybe we'll find enough narratives within this 8 million year span to break out a pink. I've showed you where the Plutons are. I don't need to show you again, do I? Come on. Yes, I do. Spirit Lake Pluton. Tom from Maple Valley has come through yet again. So let's look at a classic Tom from Maple Valley map, custom-made map for us of Spirit Lake, then Tatoosh, then Snoqualmie. Spirit Lake Pluton. Here's Mount St. Helens, the cone that we all know. If you visited Mount St. Helens National Volcanic Monument, you probably have driven up on 504 when the road was open, when the gate was open, when the landslide wasn't there, and so on, and got to the visitor center. But I am prone to visiting Mount St. Helens by coming down from Packwood to Randall onto a Forest Service road and approaching to Windy Pass along Spirit Lake, and Spirit Lake itself is right here. I knew nothing. I'd never even heard of the Spirit Lake Pluton until recently. And if I haven't heard about it, most of you probably haven't heard about it either. We then will jump at some point, either today or next time, north from here to here. And please notice that Mount Rainier is firmly planted within a big red Pluton, as opposed to Mount St. Helens being offset. Thank you, Tom from Maple Valley. So this appears more scattered. You're like, I don't know, that doesn't look like a big red Pluton to me. Well, the cone has grown right on top of the frickin' thing. And as we will see today or next time, the Dick Fisk map shows this gargantuan Tatoosh Pluton that is mostly concealed by the younger cone of Mount Rainier. Chinook Pass, Cayuse Pass, other landmarks that you may be aware of. And then as we move our way north yet, there is no active cone associated with Snoqualmie batholith. And Tom has, he's broken out 2 shades of red just for his own self. And I don't remember, Tom, which was older. Maybe this is older down here. I don't know. But I'm very inexperienced with the Snoqualmie batholith. Like, you got to be kidding me. You live in Ellensburg. The Snoqualmie batholith is at Snoqualmie Pass. That's less than an hour from your house. I know. I don't have an excuse. What do you want from me? I'm wearing a red shirt now. Snoqualmie batholith. How many cones used to be here? Why aren't they here anymore? Backcountry Gary in the live chat right now says Snoqualmie needs a cone. Let's get this thing a cone, stat. Okay. Are we together? That was the rough kind of setting the hook of kind of where we are going generally today. And now we drill deeply into the Spirit Lake Pluton. Ready? Begin. I don't need to show you. I got a chalkboard. I don't need to show you. We've already seen this. I've laid this out. I want you to notice that Tom correctly has drawn a big hole in the middle of it. This is the Green River Valley. And I'm so happy. I'm so pleased to report that I have, I think, pretty good video from this area, from those 2 trips that I spent. So we're not only going to get a chance to see the detail of the Spirit Lake Pluton, and teaser, it looks weird to me. It's beautiful, but I was very surprised when I first looked at what I was sure was the Spirit Lake Pluton. It didn't look like the Snoqualmie granite. It didn't look like, I mean, look at this thing. Remember this? This is the index. Remember with Gary Docky? Remember with Gary Paul? And we were screwing around. I'm sorry. No, this is the Squire Creek. You remember we did a video clip not long ago in dark green time, 36 to 32 million years ago. And to me, the Squire Creek Pluton, which we're looking at right now, with some beautiful hornblends, and of course a beautiful mafic enclave, maybe more beautiful than the others I've seen. Gorgeous. This is what I was expecting when I saw the Spirit Lake Pluton. The Spirit Lake Pluton looks like this. And as we're going to see in these video clips, I thought maybe I was just on a chilled margin or something of the Spirit Lake Pluton, but after spending a full day screwing around following some field guides, I'm pretty sure this is the look. And I didn't see a mafic enclave the whole day. So just when you think one Pluton's the same as the next, Squire Creek, Index, Cloudy Path, they're all the same. It's all the Cascades. Well, no, they're not all the same color according to our scheme. Dark green, light green, red, maybe pink. But even in hand sample, question, why are there such significant differences in the texture and the look from one Pluton to the next? And do I have hand samples of the Tatoosh? I guess I don't. Do I have hand samples of the Snoqualmie Batholith? I guess I don't. I mean, ideally, I would love to have, okay, here's a thought. Maybe by the downtown lectures in April, maybe I can get a handsome hand sample, something like this, for each of these big red Plutons for the next few shows. I guess I could go out and do that. But it's wintertime. Okay, I've stalled long enough. Let's go to the Spirit Lake Pluton. Okay? First of all, let's just set the stage. This is my first trip down, and I think it was early August, very early morning, no traffic, wonderful time to be out there. St. Helens. So I think in this little video, I'm not sure, but I think in this little video, I'm just going to follow a field guide. In fact, I've got it in my pocket. Let's go over here. I've got a little field guide that I'm going to follow, and maybe we can stop at just a couple of outcrops and just get introduced to these outcrops that are tied to the Spirit Lake Pluton. So there was a Geological Society of America meeting in Seattle in 1994. And Russ Everts and Don Swanson wrote this field guide, and they took a bunch of geologists up here in October of 1994. And they introduced the field guide with a bunch of detail that I need to ask Mike Eddy, but I'm thinking maybe Mike Eddy was directly influenced by this field guide and gave him the idea, perhaps, to propose doing more work with the Spirit Lake Pluton, because there's a bunch of good stuff in here. I don't know if there's a digital copy of this. Anybody out there, can you find a digital copy of this thing? This is from a larger collection of field guides. The Swanson and Hagerud editors, Geologic Field Trips in the Pacific Northwest, 1994, Geological Society of America Annual Meeting. I'd like to share this with everybody because there's a lot of good stuff, including, like, I don't know, does Jeff Tepper know about the basalt of Kalama River? They talk about this being a major question mark. But just, again, setting up the field guide, Russ and Don are like, here's what the Spirit Lake Pluton looks like. Yeah, there's a known caldera, the Quartz Creek caldera, that I think is... Okay, forgive the interruption. I wanted to do this. I knew there was something I was forgetting. I want to set up something right now before we resume that clip. And it's an idea I got from Backcountry Gary. And I've run it by Jeff Tepper, Mike Eddy, a few others. And it seems to be a thing. And it's something that we might try to do this whole month. The Holy Trinity. Is it crazy to ask do we find Plutons volcanics and calderas together? The Holy Trinity. You got a big Pluton? Sure. You got a bunch of volcanic rocks, volcanic ash flow tuffs, volcanic tephras and other things that you can tie to one of these Plutons? Sure. Is there a caldera also? Oh, I don't know. No, we got, no, I don't think so. We've got the volcanic stuff. We got the Pluton. Is that good enough for you? It seems like there's always a caldera, or almost always a caldera, or maybe multiple calderas tied to that Pluton, and therefore the volcanic deposits. In other words, if we're BADR, we're D and R. We're dacites and rhyodacite and rhyolites. We're silicic bodies that are sending out very explosive pyroclastic deposits and ash falling out of the sky. Enough energy with enough silica to produce a caldera, a huge crater. And you're like, why is that such a big deal? Well, I don't know. For me, calderas in the Cascades are not a thing that I teach about. Offhand, I'll hear something about the Kulshan caldera or something like that, but I don't know what to do with it. I introduce in my teaching a caldera with supervolcanoes, with Yellowstone, with mantle plumes. But it seems like, and that's why I paused this video right here, it seems like every one of these major Plutons has some sort of caldera that has been it always feels like the caldera is not the main point of the study. It's like we're looking at the Pluton, we're looking at these lavas, we're looking at this pyroclastic deposit. Yeah, I think we've got kind of a dashed, what looks like a caldera, but I don't know. We'll have somebody else work on it. Besides Paul Hammond, I don't know if anybody else has worked on it. Maybe Wes Hildreth. Other names that I can drop right now, but I don't really know. I find that fascinating. And I'm not doing it randomly. You already know if you've been watching this channel. Hannah Shamloo has a shit ton of ash falling out of the sky at the Goat Rocks. There's a caldera that's inferred. Let's stop inferring the calderas and let's be firm about them if possible. Back to the clip, but that was on my mind even this summer. Okay, can I start this again without it going away? Maybe tied to the Spirit Lake Pluton. And the point is, this road is driving right through the Spirit Lake Pluton, which I didn't know. You remember a month ago, before I knew about the acceptance of this proposal, I'd never even heard of the Spirit Lake Pluton. I just assumed, what do I know? I just assumed, even leading geology trips up here 30 years ago, oh, by the way, there's Rainier way in the distance. Can the camera handle that? It's hazy today. Looking north, you can perhaps see Rainier peeking out on the far distance there. Those aren't clouds. But this road, my point is, this road to Windy Ridge has lots of dramatic exposures of lavas and I guess granitic rocks that are tied to the Spirit Lake Pluton. Who knew? Not me. So we'll stop a few places where Russ and Don want us to stop, and we'll just get started thinking about this stuff. This is an introduction to this area for you and for me. Thank you. Okay. You don't see a blown up cone that often, so it is quite impressive, I have to say. you're looking south to Mount St. Helens itself, and then you're looking south on this road that heads to the St. Helens. I think similar to people being obsessed with Mount Rainier and blowing right by the green Ohanapikosh, makes sense. I think we're all guilty of it. There's this beautiful crown jewel of the Pacific Northwest right ahead through the windshield. Why would I stop and look at this green stuff? I think it's the same kind of thing with driving to Mount St. Helens, especially from the east side, going to the Windy Ridge viewpoint. You're blowing right by all these outcrops of the Spirit Lake Plutons. Like, why would I stop here? Like, here's this famous 1980 explosion, and the volcano's still sitting there. I hope I get a chance to see it. I hope the weather's clear enough. So you know what we're doing. We're waiting on Geology 351 this spring to look at the cones. We're looking at these older stories. Yeah, these video clips are longer than normal, but my intention here is to really have you out there with me. And, I didn't edit these to keep them nice and brisk. So it's it's an intentional kind of slower thing, just to hopefully have you settle in to virtually being out there with me and hopefully inspiring you to go out there and do the same sort of thing with these road guides next summer. Next clip, still just trying to set the stage for this area. And I knew nothing at this point about the Spirit Lake Pluton. We haven't seen the Pluton itself yet. Moving on. This is a beautiful correlation diagram that is already really making me happy as far as trying to piece together some of all these units in the Cascades. So it's a geologic time scale going from 50 million years ago until today. And these are organized by color. These are plutonic igneous rocks. These are volcanic igneous rocks. These are sedimentary units and volcaniclastic sedimentary units. And then some glacial deposits up there towards the top. So both in stratigraphic column form and in correlation unit form, there's a lot here. And you're like, let me get my hands on that map. Well, this is, I don't know if there must be a digital form somewhere. This was put out by the Washington Geological Survey in 1987, the first of 4 quadrants. This is the southwest quadrant of Washington. Geologic map GM-34, and this is sheet 2. I've never really sat down and looked at it, but I love it. And it goes along with this, which I've been using in Geology 101 lab for many years. I've got these laminated. There's student fingerprints all over these things. But I'll be getting a lot of use out of this because both the Goat Rocks Volcano Project, Hannah Shamloo, and the Spirit Lake Pluton Project, Mike Eddy, they both show up in this southwestern quadrant, and I like this scale. So Portland, Oregon is here, and here's Mount Adams, active stratovolcano. Here's Mount St. Helens, active stratovolcano. Here's Mount Rainier, active stratovolcano. Here's Olympia, the state capital of Washington, and Tacoma. And here's Ellensburg. And so what stands out? Well, there's a bunch of orange. And a bunch of orange is the volcanic rocks in the Cascades, ghost volcano locations. The reds are plutonic blotches. Here's the Spirit Lake Pluton. Come on, man, right there. With the Green River carving right through the middle of it. And green, that might catches your eye, is the Rim Rock Inlier.
Grello.
Exotic terrains that are somehow exposed in a place that there should be thick piles of Cascade lavas, more than 46 million years of this stuff. Somehow we do have this fruitcake peeking out from beneath the entire stack.
Yeah, I don't get that thickness. I'm still wondering about that thickness. Thanks again, Tom from Maple Valley, for the detailed map. And we are now
going to start visiting the actual rock, the petrology. And I'm weak. I know basic rock-forming minerals, and that's about it. But in the next couple of clips, we're going to be doing some banging on some rocks, getting some samples like this, and we'll get a chance to see the detail of this gorgeous-looking, in my opinion, Spirit Lake Pluton. And this will be the main focus of this Spirit Lake project coming as soon as May of this year, when both Isla Pamukchu and Michael Eddy are here at Central Washington giving lectures and then going out and doing field work during the month of May. You're invited to come meet Mike and Isla this May. I just I zoomed in on Tom's map. If you're looking for any sort of bearings here, this is Rife Lake. This is US 12, Morton, Mossy Rock, Randall. And what I was just showing you was driving in on this road, which is my favorite way to approach Mount St. Helens. Let's go to the red. Let's go to the big red Pluton. Come on, man. 1994. Spirit Lake Pluton, north of Mount St. Helens itself, and the Green River Valley, the North Fork of the Green River, cutting right through the heart of this Pluton. Doo-doo. Okay. You're like, haven't you done your homework? Don't you know exactly what you're looking at? Hell no. We're doing this together. It's interestingly jointed. It's almost like we have a weak colonnade. But I'm confident this is nothing but granitoid material. In other words, a simple granite. But is it simple? And is it uniform throughout? Or like many Plutons, are there half a dozen or more different zones that you could map out within the Pluton? I don't know. But we're just getting a first look. So let's find a spot that is easy to bang on here. Oh, these are almost like they're waiting for us here. Let's use this one right here. I'm not in a national park. I can do this now. Hi-ya! Hi-ya! Oh, I like that one. Okay, focus with my nose. Well, I'm surprised. If this truly is the Spirit Lake Pluton, I'm surprised that we don't have a nice coarse texture with some big quartzes and some big different kinds of feldspars and some hornblends. This, I guess, is a Pluton. I guess it's coarse-grained enough. But it's more fine-grained than I thought. Now, are we at the margin of the Pluton? Is that why it's fine-grained? Is that look that we just saw a consistent look to all the samples, big and small? Well, yeah, every one of these things looks like this. Another one. Light-colored, mottled, medium to coarse-grained plutonic rock containing abundant white to gray plagioclase feldspar minerals, very pale brown orthoclase feldspar minerals, green augite and hornblende, and a little black biotite, and glassy quartz. Alteration has covered clots of mafic minerals to green amphibole and epidote within white spots of feldspar. This is again 1989. Paul is talking to us. The 21-million-year-old Spirit Lake Pluton consists of 3 phases an early phase of chiefly dikes of porphyritic granodiorite and quartz diorite at the north end of the Pluton, a middle phase containing quartz diorite, though through quartz monzonite, forming the bulk of the Pluton, and late granite quartz monzonite phase in the northeast part of the Pluton. The sequence of emplacement and spatial distribution of the various intrusions in the Pluton is complex. The granodiorite here is part of the main phase. Granite of the late phase is exposed in road cuts to the north. This rock is lighter in color, finer grained. Okay, so I don't really know exactly where we are in the Pluton. Like, are we on the north side? It's interesting that Hammond is telling us that there's 3 phases. And I think it's also interesting that the early phase is the dikes and sills. I ran into that with the Tatoosh Pluton, which I didn't totally understand. We're getting more light now, and looking across the way, you can see those little white matchsticks. Those are the trees that were standing after the blast, but were totally singed. And the lethal ash flow coming through here. Wow, and then that stopped. So this is the northern edge of the blast zone. Right there. Little 1980 drama, still recorded. Almost 40 years. Always screw up the timing of that. 1980, 2024. More than 40 years ago. Jeez. Come on, man. Where's my hammer? So which of the 3 phases of the Spirit Lake Pluton are we looking at here? I don't know, but now that we read some more detailed mineralogy from Paul Hammond in 1989, I'll let you see if you can see what he was just describing. Very interesting jointing, wouldn't you say, within this granodiorite? Huh. Moss everywhere. Not in the desert today. Okay, this is starting to look like an old friend already. Like we just got introduced at the last stop. This is maybe 3 miles away. Ouch. Yeah. Stupid one to work on. Get a thin slab, boy. Like this. Get a thin slab like this. Come on, it's not that hard. Hiya. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What does this look like? What food does this look like? Is this some kind of raisin bread or something? I don't know, it's got, I've already decided it's got a certain look to it. Whether we're in the main phase or not, I'm not sure, but it doesn't really look like a typical granodiorite to me. Look at that. Okay. It looks like a fruitcake to me, but I can't say fruitcake. We've already used that. That's too confusing to call this fruitcake, but it's like some sort of granola bar, or isn't there some sort of specialty energy bar or something that kind of looks like this. Oh.
Okay, how we doing? More video clips in this stretch than normal, and they're longer. But it's trying to get you to this place because, yes, need I remind you that the main reason we're doing Cascades this winter is because of this project we're talking about right now? And I've seen many of you in the live chat saying, how old is the Spirit Lake Pluton? What's the deal? How old is Snoqualmie? How old is... We're just saying 20s so far. And one of the main reasons that this Spirit Lake Pluton project is happening is because we don't have the good dates yet from a massive batholith, from a massive Pluton like the Spirit Lake. And we know that Mike Eddy in particular is going to just attack that Pluton like nobody's business and make all sorts of connections with Isla with the volcanic deposits. That's where we're headed. But we have one more clip where I'm just driving on this old Forest Service road and giving you a sense of that Green River Valley. And then we will transition to 2 video clips with Isla Pamukchu. I left the house at 4:30 on a September morning and got up there just as the sun was starting to hit these slopes. You're looking west right now.
Green River Valley. (1994). Granodiorite porphyry in the main phase of the Spirit Lake Pluton. Representative of the most abundant unit in the Spirit Lake Pluton, which consists of 3 phases, each displaying substantial internal compositional and textural variation. The main phase, which is more than 3/4 of the whole thing, ranges in composition from tonalite to quartz diorite to granodiorite. There's an old date of 21.8 plus or minus 0.7 million years ago, concordant with several other potassium, argon, and fission tract dates, all in the neighborhood of 21 million years ago. Mike Eddy will improve that for sure. This locality is on the eastern fringe of the outer propylitic zone of the Earl Porphyry copper deposit, manifested by thin veinlets of green epidote and pyrite. Okay, so sun's trying to break over the eastern horizon here. Still on Route 26. We're now north of Norway Pass. In the shade, let's look at some of the rock, and then in the sun, let's look at some of the bedrock. Spirit Lake Pluton. That same real jointed look that I showed you from earlier this morning. Spirit Lake Pluton in the flesh. Yeah. Those black things are just stunning. I guess they're augites. Maybe some hornblends. But the mafic content in this stuff is pretty cool. Ooh, got company for the first time this morning.
Okay, I think that's plenty with the hand samples of the Spirit Lake Pluton. Apparently that's the main look of the main body, which is almost 75% of this thing, is that granola-looking mint chocolate chip deal. So, be fun to follow through on that. And yes, this summer I'll be going out and making videos with Isla and Mike and their 2 students. And so we'll just be back in that setting. So
this is a chance for us to just get our feet wet with it. And then as we get more and more detail and they start to get some results, you'll be with this project from start to finish over the next 3-4 years. Looking forward to that. Speaking of the project, 2 days ago I met Isla for the first time. She's sharp, and I've seen from many of you in the live chat, whenever I have a discussion with a geologist, especially for somebody I haven't met before, they're like, wow, these geologists are just so nice and they're so inviting and they're intelligent and they don't take themselves too seriously and they're all just really impressive. There are plenty of geologists who are not that way. I just don't invite them on the frickin' program. All right. So Isla is delightful, and I'm looking forward to getting to know her better. Let's hear from her project with Mike Eddy in Nevada, which sounds like a very similar team that they have going already in Nevada with a Pluton down there. And we're learning about the Nevada work because it sounds like they'll be trying to do similar things with the Spirit Lake Pluton. Isla, what were the objectives of that Nevada work and what were the results? And are you hoping to do something similar up here in the Cascades?
Yeah, so there's this sort of perpetual question as to what is the relationship between the magmas that don't erupt, that sit in the crust to form things like plutons and batholiths, and the ones that do erupt, especially high silica magmas.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you catch what she just said? We're going to listen to that again. I didn't catch it again till right now. There are some plutons that are destined to stay in the dark. There are some magma bodies that eat their way up, and I'll just add some personification on it, some human nature to that. There are some plutons that are invading from below, and they are doomed to never break the surface. And there's other plutons who have all sorts of signs of success that they will daylight and get to the surface. That's a new thought for me. I just assumed, I don't know why, I just assumed all plutons were just blobs of magma that were all successful in getting to the surface. Is that really dumb to say out loud? Probably. I want to hear that clip again. She said something about, well, there's the age-old question about why do some plutons stay in the subsurface and others go to the surface? Like, I'm interested in that. And maybe I'm missing something basic with the premise of the statement, but it sounded very interesting to me. But I didn't want to interrupt her then like I am now. Let's do it. It's more polite to do it now, I guess. What were the objectives of that Nevada work and what were the results? And are you hoping to do something similar up here in the Cascades?
Yeah, so there's this sort of perpetual question as to what is the relationship between the magmas that don't erupt, that sit in the crust to form things like plutons and batholiths, and the ones that do erupt, especially high silica magmas. So in the Searchlight Pluton, we have this really fantastic exposure. It's like a nearly 90-degree tilted Pluton that literally across the street has a coeval volcanic sequence that's also been partly tilted. So we've had this really, and 2 or 3 decades of research there at this point have shown a really strong connection between the plutonic units, the intrusive magmas, and the volcanic units, the extrusive magmas. So we were really digging into and investigating a couple of questions there. One is like, what part of this Pluton was actually a coherent magma reservoir at any given time? It was the entire Pluton a magma reservoir, or were there parts of it that were sort of alive and crystallizing at once in different parcels? And which, if any, of those parts ended up resulting in the volcanic sequence? So that was, we really started on the Pluton side. There had been some overarching dates that had been collected for the Pluton using less precise age dating methods, SIMS and TRIMP. And so we really went in and Mike did the heavy lifting on doing the dating and really spending time going through the Pluton to try to get at the geochronology within the Pluton. And by doing that, I was able to resolve very nicely some ideas that had been sort of out there for the Pluton, but really able to show this middle section of the Pluton really represented this coherent magma reservoir. And so since then, I and my students have been working on the volcanic sequence and trying to both look at the history of the magmas just by themselves in terms of the volcanics, but also think about their relationship to the Pluton and what the architecture of those magmas really was in the Pluton.
Okay, well, this sounds familiar because it sounds like that's roughly the plan up here as well with the Spirit Lake project. So let me drill a little deeper with the Nevada thing, since you're kind of working on it now. It sounds like with a student or two,
Still ongoing work, yeah.
Okay, so so with the Pluton side and kind of the Mike side of it, what was the rough age range before this project down in Nevada? Was it the Searchlight Pluton? Is that what you called it?
Searchlight Pluton. Yeah, it's Miocene in age, and it was generally thought to be the age range that Mike was getting as well. So let's see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the age range was, but the coarseness it makes it hard of the shrimp dates makes it hard to really say throughout a section, am I actually able to resolve time within that section to say this part was cold and this part was warm at the same time? And so the entire Pluton itself was built over about 1 to 2 million years, but each one of these packets was built into, so it's at this point dividable into 3, maybe 4 units that were some of which were independently crystallized, and then we had this nice reservoir in the middle that was the last.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like 500,000 for each little chapter within this 2 million year thing?
So about 150 to 200,000 years for each one of these little packets.
And so that was phase 1 essentially, and now phase 2 is working with the volcanic units. Why was that Pluton work important before you started doing your volcanic work, or is it that chronology really what you're describing?
Yeah, I mean, there are different ways you can get at the question of volcanic plutonic connections, intrusive, extrusive. And so, having that geochronology really pinpoints for us both that in fact they are coeval if the volcanics fit within the age range, but also which parts of the Pluton should we be interrogating to look at whether or not these magmas were extracted for them. Because the one of the models is that you have this crystallizing Pluton, and as you crystallize something that's a less evolved magma, as you crystallize it and you pull those crystals out, the magma becomes more and more evolved, so more and more silicic. Yeah. And then we erupt that out the top if we can pull it out of that crystallizing stuff. So then the Pluton represents this residue left behind from the volcanics. And so to really get at that, you kind of need to know where in the Pluton to be looking to think about whether or not there would be any signatures of this extraction process. So from my perspective, from the volcanic perspective, one of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is thinking about where in the crust were the volcanic magmas? So how deep were there? What was the pressure that they were sitting at? And does that coincide with where in the Pluton it would be? Does geobarometry line up? So the kind of first thing is, do these things overlap in age, and which parts overlap? And then we can start to interrogate the other physical parameters to say, do these things line up with this? And if so, what kind of evidence of process do we see?
Interrogate. I like that. All right, let's get into this. Yeah, it's good.
She's good. And Stanford University, she and Mike Eddy met when they were postdocs at Princeton. Like, this is upper crust scientist stuff that we're dealing with here. And this is lowly Central Washington University, and I'm from a farm in Wisconsin. So we are dealing with some of the best minds in the country, maybe the world, with this type of a work. It's a thrill to interact with these folks directly. I'm speaking for myself, but maybe for you too, especially as we get to know these folks better and better.
They're humble. There's humility. But there is absolute mastery of their skills. And they're both in their 30s, Mike and Isla, I think. One more from Isla, and then we're going to transition and finish up today with getting at least a first taste at the Tatoosh as it invades the Uhanapakash Formation. One more from Isla Pamukchu from Stanford University.
Up in the Spirit Lake area. So that is really what is a unique aspect of looking at the Spirit Lake Pluton.
Well, let's do more with that. Have you been up to Washington at all to do field work so far?
I have not, no.
Okay. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that Nevada Pluton volcanic sequence was chosen because it's laying on its side, essentially, and you've got everything splayed out for everybody to see. And maybe that's not true with the Spirit Lake Pluton, but that detailed mapping by Don Swanson and Russ Everts and others, was that one of the hooks to select the Spirit Lake Pluton? Or why would, out of all the Plutons, you guys could go anywhere in North America or maybe beyond, why Spirit Lake Pluton?
So one of the nice things about Spirit Lake is that the exposure, as shown in the mapping, the Pluton intrudes some of the youngest parts of the volcanic pile in this area. So we know that the youngest part or the oldest part of the youngest section of the volcanics was intruded by the Pluton, but the preliminary ages on it also suggest that the younger part of that volcanic sequence overlaps with the Pluton. So it's very coarse dating, old argon age, right? And so that's what we kind of want to dig into. So again, the exposure, the field relations suggest that there could be a relationship. The initial ages suggest that there could be a relationship. And so it does have exposure that is useful to us in a way that a lot of studies that have looked at this question have only been able to access the plutonic perspective or only able to access the volcanic perspective. And so that's a little bit more limiting.
Well, the timing for this conversation is good. Number one, I've been meaning to chat with you, and we tried to do it before Christmas, and it didn't work. So here we are. But this live stream series that I've been doing over the course of the winter, we're just approaching the 20s, as we're calling them, and we're dealing with Snoqualmie batholith and Tatoosh and all these Plutons that all appear to be firing up at about the same time. That's weird enough that I don't know what the tectonic context is for that. But I think that I'm getting the idea that your work is all within the lifespan of one flare-up, essentially. One big, is it almost, do you know Hannah Shamloo, by the way? Is that familiar to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of her a little bit because she's chosen the Scout Rocks project close to where you guys are working, and Hannah's working with the birth and then the death of this whole system, and she's mostly working on the volcanic stuff and not so much the Pluton, if there is a Pluton there. I think ultimately I'd like to see what you guys come up with Spirit Lake and then see how that compares to a bunch of these other Plutons in the 20s that we'll be talking about in the next few episodes. Nothing like what you and Mike have planned for Spirit Lake has been done in the Northwest or in the Cascades at all. Do you have a sense of that? It doesn't sound like anybody's gotten that detailed within one Pluton unit.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that there's been some specific stuff in Plutons that I'm not aware of. I know,
Right.
Mike has spent time up in the Golden Horn and that sort of stuff, but certainly within this kind of framework of having these volcanics to relate to the plutonics, again, because the exposure generally is not as good in the arcs as it is in these extensional areas.
Right.
Haven't had that access in quite the same way.
Yeah. Well, so you guys are coming up. You're both giving talks here in Ellensburg, so thanks publicly. Okay, that's plenty. I wanted to give Isla a lot of time there because I don't think we're going to hear from her again the rest of the series. And so stay tuned with more from Isla Pamukchu. Good. Let's go ahead and transition as we wrap this one up. We're approaching 9:20 a.m. local time. Let's transition to a couple of other places where we are not going to have nearly the detail with video clips from the field and other things, But we've got some Tom from Maple Valley Maps. We've got some questions that I have. And so that's kind of the idea, that we'll just ultimately, at some point, possibly in this alphabet, have a bunch of new data, new information that's already been acquired, and I just am unaware of it. So if I get emails and tips from many of you in the next few days, I would be grateful to flesh out some details, especially if there's been some new work. I don't think there has been, but we know the new work by Mullen up at the Chilliwack. By the way, Mullen has a younger sister, Marcy, who went to school here. She was a track and field athlete. I tried hard to get Marcy Mullen to be a geology major. She didn't give in. She stuck to her guns. But somehow I figured that out, that Marcy's older sister is Emily, the one that did the work on the Chilliwack. Okay, small world. Let's go ahead then and just get started heading north. Let's leave Spirit Lake with Isla and Mike. Let's go to Tatoosh, maybe even a touch of Snoqualmie. Yep. Tom, Maple Valley, we've already seen this. We know the Ohanapakash is the scene. But I'll tell you what, we did this last time. Do you remember? We had our mica flakes coming in from eastern Washington. And what's going to happen once we get into the Roaring Twenties, and specifically 26 million years ago, right in the middle of this whole scene, the Tatoosh magmas are going to show up and eat their way up from below, and daylight. And I don't know, are the earliest days of the Tatoosh dealing with water? There's a new thought right now with you. If we can somehow get to the earliest days of the Tatoosh Pluton in Mount Rainier National Park, if that's possible, to figure out what the oldest part of the Tatoosh Pluton is it 26 million years ago, number one? Mike, Eddie, you need to go up there next, I think. Maybe somebody's done it. I don't think so, though. Are the earliest days, are the 26 million year old days of the first warm-up phase of the Tatoosh Pluton a bunch of phreatomagmatic stuff? Are we having Ohanapakash explosions, green, that are also happening early in red time? I don't know. Move on. What was I going to do? Oh, I just did it. I just had magma invading from below in the Ohanapakash. What does that look like on the map? I say, what does that look like on the map if you have red Tatoosh magma coming up through this tranquil green time down by sea level? Oh, cripes. It looks like this. The Tatoosh is coming up from below. It's intruding up into the green. And again, I show you Tom's photos where he has Tatoosh invading the Ohanapakash. We're leaving the bumping Lake Pluton till down the road. Younger red invading older green. Younger red invading up through older green. Younger red, magma, invading older. But are these both similar looking? Maybe I know this is a different unit. How different are these really? Do we have the flattened pumice and the lapilli and all that crap in the Tatoosh? I guess not, since it's truly plutonic. I think I'm answering my own question. Yeah. And then, recently I said, Tom, can you just do a Tatoosh map without the orange, without the green Ohanapakash? I got distracted because I want to go back to... So Chris Mattinson, you know him by now. That's the guy that was doing the green M&M demo earlier this week. Chris has been watching these shows, and now Chris is taking the time to email after every episode. So last night he watched the last show, and he said a couple thoughts. Rotation of the early Cascade Silesia block needs to be accommodated somehow, presumably by extension to the east. Is all the evidence buried by the Columbia River basalts? Or are there suitable sedimentary basins somewhere? How far east did the deformation go? See, Chris has got questions too. He doesn't expect answers, I don't think. Number two, you remember we were focusing on the big, fat muscovites that were in the Wenatchee Formation, but apparently also, according to Don Swanson, interbedded and interfingered with the Ohanapikosh. Chris Mattinson weighs in. Muscovite in sedimentary units are interfingering with the Ohanapikosh. Well, they need a source to the east because the muscovite is not stable in volcanic rocks. It breaks down at high temperatures needed to have molten rock at or near the surface, unlike biotite mica. Muscovite mica is stable in plutons if they crystallize deep enough, greater than 15 kilometers depth, and the magma is sufficiently aluminous. By the way, I don't know of Cascade plutons that have been exhumed that deeply, and the magma chemistry would not be expected to be paraluminous anyway. Yours truly, Chris Mattinson. I added the yours truly part. All right. So we are, I think, finishing today's episode. I can't remember what else I have here. Oh, I'm just adding a little bit of detail. Beautiful image, beautiful map from Tom. And the tattoos cropping out at all sides. But I think we are now realizing that coming up through, so if the Ohanapikosh was invaded from below by the Tatoosh magma during the 20s, then the Tatoosh magma in the 20s was invaded from below by purple Rainier, which is less than 500,000 years old. So this is a game of stuff forming, and then a younger stuff is coming up through it, invading most of it, melting most of it, swallowing most of it up, erasing it basically. And then wait a few million years, and then a younger batch of stuff comes up through. Like stuff coming up and then nested. It's like Russian dolls somehow. Russian dolls. I did a video that's quite popular this summer on this big thing here, the Tatoosh sill. And I couldn't find the video clip in my Dropbox folder. I don't know what happened to it. So I just have a still for you from the Utzler field guide. But at Chinook Pass, I do have this relationship. It was hard to get to this Tatoosh magma because it's on this steep wall. But those that know this switchbacky area around between Chinook and Cayuse Pass, that is the red, that's part of the big red Pluton that is squirting in to the green Ohanapikosh above and below, FYI. This is how we're going to finish. Weirdly, taking some steps back to reflect on where we've been in the last few letters. Back to the Mullen paper, older sister of Marcy, the one that got away. Dark green, index, fires up. Chilliwack, barely. Then, if you remember, 2 episodes ago, Chilliwack fires up, light green time, 32 to 26. At the same time, the green Ohanapikosh is going crazy down at Rainier Park. And now we continue the story today. The next chapter is the Tatoosh and the Snoqualmie firing up. I think at 26, although I'm not sure. But according to this Mullen paper, which is 2018, I think most of this blue here are volumes of the mostly Tatoosh and Snoqualmie that are going great guns between 26 and 19. Let's keep that narrative unless we're forced out of it. And is the Chilliwack happening during the red? Is the Chilliwack happening during the red? It is, but it's not quite the volume that it had, according to the narrative set forth by the Mullen paper. And then here's this wild lull up at Chilliwack, which is, I guess, also kind of a lull in the Cascades down here. We'll get to it. So to wrap up today, we take a couple steps back and realize that we have dark green Chilliwack from when the Chilliwack is just warming up. We have light green Chilliwack when the Chilliwack is going great, great guns. And that is now allowing us to realize that there's things happening down here south of the Chilliwack that may or may not be connected or associated. I think we stop there before we go to the Snoqualmie. It's time for some live Q&A at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you for still being with us. We still have more than 900 live viewers. A bunch will leave right now because they've seen the program. I think I've noticed that. But many of you are here till the end, and I would love to try to field some live questions, uppercase please, or maybe you have a tip or two. Or always, I do the live questions because I like to see what you're interested in or confused by, and oftentimes it gives me ideas on what to do in the next show or two. In fact, John Plong right now says, I am confused. Nick said red is 4 miles thick. No, I said red and green combined is 4 miles thick. Old on the bottom, newer on the top. How did 20-year Plutons end up at the surface? Thank you, John. Let me try again. I'll just do it with verbal hand puppet theater. There's kind of two things going on, John, in my mind. And maybe this attempt at answering your question will get us into a direction that we need to go in the next couple of letters. I view this, I think, currently as these are a bunch of volcanic deposits. So volcanic deposits are almost like, I'm thinking them like sedimentary layers. I know that's confusing to say it that way, but we're building a cake. We're building a layer cake, Geology 101, and just like in the Grand Canyon, we have the older stuff at the bottom, and it gets younger and younger and younger and younger. And so what's in blue? The early days of the Cascades. What's in dark green? The earliest days of the Ohanapikosh. And then well, that's not true. Green is Ohanapikosh. Then this Fife's Peak is the formation we're introducing for the first time very briefly and casually today. And then we get to the Yakima basalts, otherwise known as the Columbia River basalts. So I would think, John, as this is just a simple storybook, chapter book, build the cake layer by layer. But today's episode is not really talking about those. Today's episode is talking about these invasions from below, which are happening at different times. And if I really want to improvise right now and include the Chilliwack, what do I really need to? I'm going to screw this up right now. Don't be sad. This should have been, dark green should be down here. Didn't we kind of warm up the Chilliwack in the dark green time? And according to the Mullen paper, light green is when the Chilliwack goes crazy. I don't know, I can make it like maybe the size of the head here is the volume, but the Chilliwack is not going to stop because it's Chilliwack rainbow, right? And so we still have Chilliwack going pretty strong with volume up by the Canadian border and across the border in red time. And so, I don't know, I keep it going up in here. And then at 22 million years ago, the thing shuts off. And then I'm really going to cheat and go up to purple. And at 11 million years ago, the Chilliwack starts up again and is still active today at Mount Baker volcano. So what is going on? At least with the Chilliwack rainbow between 22 and 11. So, John, I guess your confusion is maybe shared by many here, and occasionally it's shared by me, where I'm trying to think of these two things happening simultaneously sometimes. The two things happening simultaneously. we're laying down Fife's Peak layers at the same time that we're invading them from below. And if you listened very carefully to Isla, I think I included that clip. I think Isla said some of the layers of the Spirit Lake area are older than the Spirit Lake itself. Now I'm getting ahead to next episode, but I think it's something like this. So I think there's some layers of the Fife's Peak in the Spirit Lake area that are I'm going to make it up now, 26 to 22. And then the Spirit Lake Pluton proper is invading stuff that was, some of it's older than 23. I'm making this up. I'm just trying to sketch this out for myself mentally. And then I got more questions. Why are these layers here? Are these layers from Spirit Lake Pluton also? But is this Spirit Lake Pluton that, okay, we're back to that. We're back to that. We're back to Isla's casual comment about, maybe I'm dwelling on it too much, but like, are there Plutons that are not going to daylight and there's other Plutons that are going to daylight? And so are these the volcanic deposits from an earlier Spirit Lake Pluton that did daylight, let's say 25 million years ago? You know what I mean by daylight? It gets to the surface and makes a bunch of volcanic layers. And then is this mint chocolate chip Pluton that I've been talking about today and collecting with you and doing hi-ya, is this the Pluton that did not daylight, did not make it to the surface? Is the Spirit Lake Pluton only Pluton that stayed in the dark? And like, I don't think so. I think the whole reason these guys are trying, Isla and Mike are working together, is Isla's doing the volcanic deposits, Mike's doing the plutonic stuff, and they're supposed to be finding ways to connect all those things. I'm starting to get confused myself. In a good way. That was all from one question. Thank you, John. More. I'm scrolling back. Can we tell if lavas have been erupted into saltwater versus freshwater? Thank you, Will. I'm not sure. I doubt it, but I'm not sure. Papagino, if some old Plutons are at the surface, some volcanoes are new, do they have future Plutons below them? Right. Okay. We're in this zone now. Maybe I need to talk to Mike. Maybe I need to do a Zoom with Mike and share my confusion. And he can go, oh, that's nothing. Here, let me give you 3 sentences to solve it. Or he might go, oh, that's exactly what we're trying to work on. I don't know. J. Nick Adams, Tucson King. What are some typical formula calculations of Pluton's upward force in the science of geology? Seriously? A.F. Winter, is there any connection between the Mount St. Helens area Plutons with the magmas below Indian Heaven? All I know is, thank you for the question, all I know, Indian Heaven is very, very young. Like purple, but even like late purple, deep purple. There is something in the wind about the Spirit Lake Pluton being big enough and dense enough to explain why Mount Adams and Indian Heaven are off to the side. I think, why doesn't Mount Adams have a big red Pluton? Or does it? And it's just buried. I think there's something about St. Helens and Adams are there because of this Spirit Lake Pluton hogging the space. We're to the part of the program where I'm truly making stuff up. We're over 2 hours. We're approaching 2 hours long. I need to wrap it up. 3 more. Michael, is not a caldera the remains of an exploded volcano? Generally, yes, Michael. But we can have calderas in Hawaii where there's just a collapse of the top of the Kilauea shield volcano. So there's calderas from just truly the roof of the volcano falling into itself. That's a caldera, a huge, 30 miles across circular crater. And then the opposite end of the spectrum is something like Yellowstone, where we have an explosion, as you say. There's still collapse, I guess, in that story, but it's a very different mechanism. And then, again, to my surprise, there are significant calderas forming regularly, apparently, through the history of the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Why? Why? If there really is a Holy Trinity, if there really is a caldera associated with each of these plutons, big and small, is it just because there's always some high silica melts that are somehow part of the pluton? And if you finally get those high silicate melts or high silica melts to the surface, you have to make a caldera because it's so sticky and there's so much gas and water trapped? I don't know. But I think a first step is just documenting all these. That's, I think, one thing I want to try to do in the next couple of letters. I want to go to each of these spots in Washington and see if there's a caldera that's been mapped for each of those spots, each of those 5 spots. I think there is. 2 more. Sharon from Malaga, is there a known Pluton under part of Lake Chelan and Edge? Anyone? A known Pluton. The Cloudy Pass Pluton comes pretty close to the upper end of Lake Chelan. And there are other Plutons that are back in the Eocene. I think you're asking about the Cascade, Sharon, but if we go back to the crazy Eocene, sure. We're back to the rollback and break off and older yet. That's how we'll finish. We can go all the way back to Mount Stuart Batholith. Do you remember? 2 winters ago? Baja, BC? I used to just for years say that Mount Stuart Batholith is 93 million years old. And then when I got into the weeds with Murrow Beck and Bob Miller and Scott Patterson and others who have done detailed science in the Mount Stuart Batholith, they're like, it's not one date and it's not one chemistry. The Mount Stuart Batholith is a composite of mafic to felsic, Nick. And the age range for the Mount Stuart Batholith goes from 96 to 91 million years ago. So that's another example. It's not the Cascades. It's not younger than 46, but it's another example where for years, one big Pluton had one big number stamped on it. And we're back to the idea that the Spirit Lake Pluton, as sketchy as the numbers are, I think if we're forced right now, okay, if we're forced right now to put one number on these, let me do it. Why not? Let me just put a number on each one of these, and then we can see how wrong I am over the next 3 letters, okay? Why not? This is off the dome from my struggles in the last 24 hours to try to find some reasonable dates for these things, because I purposely have not used the numbers. All I've said is the 20s. Okay, I think the number that comes to mind for Spirit Lake is 21. And we're going to find out in the next couple of years that that's embarrassing. And it's actually a range of 23.39 plus or minus 0.07 up to 20.939.04. And there's 7 different plutons within the Spirit Lake plutonic complex, and it ranges in age. And that granola, that mint chocolate chip thing, that is just one thing, it turns out. It's one of 7 separate chapters within this one big red Pluton. That's all Mike, Eddie, and Isla talking to me like, you got to go back and change that episode S. You're a joke, son. They wouldn't say that. But this is where I am. I promised one number, right? 22. Gary Paul photos are coming next time, and Gary had 25 on his photos, and then he's like, "Oh, I've done a little bit of reading. I think I even asked you, Gary, can you find the best date you can find?" He's like, I think 22. I'm going to change my labels." So I quick hustled and put Gary's new photos in that has 22 instead of 25. We're just playing a game, right? We're just picking one number to prove the point that, yeah. I'm not going to ask you what your number is. This is. Oh, why not? Okay, I got to screenshot this after the fact. Those are the 5 numbers that I'm choosing, knowing full well that they are incorrect. But at a first order pass, if I'm doing some field trip for geology students, I would just probably, if I had a bunch of other stuff I wanted to teach, I'd just say, here's a number for each of these big red plutons. Write them down. Then they'll go, actually, do you know the Marcy Mullins' older sister paper from 2018 that proves that the Chile... A toast to you. Here's to you for joining us on a Saturday morning, the first day of February of 2025. Thank you for joining us today. Here's to everyone in your family, and here's to your health, your physical and mental health in early February. Are you having trouble this winter with the doom and gloom, weather and otherwise? I'm glad you're here. This is meant to be a positive place, and it is. Okay, I've got 5 days to figure out what we're doing next. And so I'll come up with some good stuff in the next few days. Thank you, everybody. I love you. And we'll see you next time. Whoa. Next time I see you, it will be Thursday, February 6th at noon Pacific time. At least 2 more red shows coming at you. Here at Cascades A to Z headquarters on the first floor of Discovery Hall, Central Washington University, Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. End stream.